Soundstripe. Soundstripe. Soundstripe.
Shalom, shalom. I want to welcome you to the Black News Network, BNN 247, the real voice of Black USA. This is from the desk of the Emissary. We're broadcasting live the War Report, and we're doing it from a Black point of view. We don't own the rights to the music, but we do own the right to what we say. Today's topic is about voting. I mean, the power of voting has never, ever been more important than it is right now. We have a situation in America that's going to require all hands on deck. We all got to get out there and do our part. But think about it this way. Every single year, you have certain civil rights activists out there pounding the pavement every single day, trying to get you to register to vote. How long is it going to take you to do that? You shouldn't have to have that after your ancestors died for this particular purpose, to give us that right. Not a privilege, it's a right. So without further ado, we're going to talk about the power of the vote. And I want to welcome my friend and co-host, Mr. Clark. Thank you. Go ahead.
Glad to be here with you, brother. We couldn't be talking about a better subject. As a native from Alabama, Selma, Alabama, I can tell you that of all the legislation and of all the importance of different issues, the voting has got to be at the top of the totem pole. Simply for the fact that it was kept from us, it was denied from us, legally and illegally. So it's important. But I want to debunk this myth that black people don't vote. We vote almost at a higher percentage than whites in this country. We definitely outvote Hispanics. We outvote Asians. But I think what this show is about is how the black vote is oftentimes taken for granted. In between those times when we vote and having to vote again, and the reality that's in between. So, I'll just begin with those comments, and we can just go from there. But those are my initial thoughts in terms about voting. And we know in Texas they're still trying to deny black people in particular the right to vote, access to the vote. It is true. All these voter laws that they're passing, they're not targeted to people that don't vote. They're not targeted to white people. They're targeted to African Americans who vote. Hispanics are the majority in this state in terms of numbers, in terms of outdistancing African Americans in terms of raw numbers. But African Americans vote in proportion to white folks. And that's why we matter. It's not about numbers, it's about people that are registered and people that are voting, and a system that's put in place to keep that franchise away from us because of that fact. Otherwise, we wouldn't have black mayors in Birmingham and Jackson, Mississippi, and Houston, Texas, and Dallas, Texas. How do you think they got there? Who do you think put them there? The black vote. And so, I just want to debunk the myths that we don't vote. We do vote in high numbers. And what we got to focus on is reminding people of that fact, and also continuing to fight for against disenfranchisement laws that are throughout the South, because you know for yourself the majority of black folks are in just about 6 to 8 states. And so when you look at starting with my own state of Alabama with the Shelby decision that basically stripped the civil rights legislation of any of the power that it had. One administration wants to continue stripping those rights by doing away with the federal agencies that double check and make sure that those rights are not violated. Whether it's the Department of Education, whether it's the Justice Department that used to oversee voting rights and prevent states from having to from trying to restrict the right to vote. That's why the states supported that Shelby decision, because it basically took out the pre-clearance requirement of the Voting Rights Act.
Now this is Shelby County, right?
Shelby County versus County versus U.S. But yeah, that case was significant because it stripped the Voting Rights Act of the power to prevent state legislators from enacting laws that would deny African Americans the right to vote.
One of the main things about that Shelby County versus Over case with the Supreme Court.
Right, Justice Department, yes, Supreme Court.
Wanted to eliminate the need for the federal government to get pre-clearance.
In fact, to show you how ruthless they were, John Roberts, in writing his opinion, said, just look at Selma. They got a black mayor now. So our success is turned around and used against us in courts.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of saying that's a success story that we want replicated throughout the country, they use that success story to get rid of the Section 5 pre-clearance. That's sick. That's how sick America still is.
Seems like every single thing is redirect or misdirect. It's so huge. It's all that kind of First of all, Donald Trump said she want to be black now. And so the media, the New York Post, all these big papers come out and say Kamala Harris is black now. Repeating what you say, rather than finding out defending and trying to prove we really are. I mean, there's no prove anything now. I mean, she's vice president, you didn't have that thing come in. But now that he's your opponent, you want to find reasons to discredit her. But you ain't got you.
Well, that's a voter suppression tactic, my brother.
That's all it is.
Because black folk, they say, well, if we convince you not to vote for Kamala, you're not going to vote at all, because you're not going to vote over here. So if we stop you from, if we can convince you that she's not the one, that's voter suppression, and that's what they're doing.
Yep. So in 1965, they voted on the Voter Rights Act. All right, and it was to ensure that all the states follow 15th Amendment. Now, the 15th Amendment had sections that were really important. One is Section 2 and Section 5. Section 2 gave individuals the right to the state or denying the vote. And then Section 5 said that must get that approval that we talked about.
Only in the states that there was only like about 11 states. They added some states later on. They added Texas, New York, and other states because of language requirements. Mm-hmm. But this goes back to what we've discussed constantly on the show. There is no legislation just for us.
That's right.
Whether it's education legislation, whether it's voting legislation, it ain't never created where we're just the beneficiary and we can make sure that disenfranchisement, inequality is addressed before you open it up to everybody else. It's like before you get to the initial problems of what the legislation was designed for, you spreading the government thin to protect all these other interests that you've included. And that's a problem. And I think because like I say, African Americans do vote. I think that we have to start educating along with the vote so that we can hold elected officials consciousness in between election cycles.
So you know, and I know what spearheaded right vote and voting rights Act of 1965. And it started in your state in Selma. When they first tried to cross the bridge, they were attacked, and some people on that bridge. And that was basically one of the starting points that voter rights. John Lewis was one of the individuals who led that march across the bridge. And that was the start of getting this voting rights approved. So next thing that happened was the Section 265 and getting past what happened on that bridge. Black people have been subjected to dog attacks. Black people have been subjected to fire hose. And black people have been subjected to just flat out denial of being able to vote. Right. You have to go to voting polls, and then you know what they met you with. They might come to you with some type of literacy test that you had no idea that you were going to have.
Well, we've heard those stories of how many bubbles in a bar of soap, how many marbles in a jar, that kind of nonsense.
It doesn't make sense.
So we have to do a better job of educating people, not so much about our present, but about our past, about legislation, so that we can talk to legislators. That the John Lewis Act voting rights bill is supposed to address these kind of gaps, but you see, we can't get it through Congress. So what do we got to do? We got to change Congress. So the part of the show is about why we should vote. Change Congress. Forget about the presidency. Let's change Congress.
People say that the vote. I vote don't. But the bottom line is, America, when you live in America, you gotta look at how they operate in this country. They operate based on the law and the book. And if you don't want to change what's going on in this country, you're gonna have to learn those laws that are in the book.
But you also got to know who your lawmaker is, and if your lawmaker is not making laws that validates your dignity and your humanity, that lawmaker needs to be removed. Let's put the presidency to the side. Kamala Harris, Trump, who says he's going to be a dictator from day one, may invalidate what I'm about to say, but Kamala Harris can't do nothing without Congress.
Right.
Congress makes the laws, and we don't do enough educating our people about how the sandwich is made. We think the president can go in and make the whole sandwich, but the president needs the lettuce, tomatoes, the salad dressing, all those ingredients that make that sandwich. And then whether they know it. Because whether you know it or not, we got black folks everywhere. So the black folks in the suburbs can be talking to them white legislators, can be mobilizing the vote in those competitive white districts, where it only takes a few swing votes here or there to change which Republican gets elected.
So what's a swing vote?
A swing vote is it's a vote in the middle that can go either way. Swing.
Okay.
Can swing either way based on the prevailing political winds. So what I'm saying is, see, we concentrate on the black community so much, and we've kind of lost the focus on these Republican districts where you got significant numbers of black folks that can swing an election if they were Republicans. But in Texas, you don't have to be a Republican to vote in a federal election. I mean, you don't have to be a registered Republican. You can vote for whoever you want to in a federal election. So we got to get a little bit more sophisticated in how we vote. Because I think most of us, and this is where Chuck comes in at, about voting. I remember when I was working for the NAACP, we did a voter registration drive at the Popeyes because Popeyes always had a long line in it. A long line of black folks. I mean, it was just a strategy. It was just one of many strategies. But you go where the people are. If they're in line at Popeyes, that's where you go. Same thing in the suburban areas. So we got to get a little bit more sophisticated in our understanding of politics. It ain't that black politicians ain't doing nothing. It's only 56 of them in the Congress. We need to get sophisticated about politics wherever we are. I mean, I know people in the suburbs, their only political engagement is back over in the hood. They don't do nothing in the suburbs. They're not talking to their white representative about black issues in the suburbs. They're not saying we set up a meeting with our white elected officials and talk to them about the concerns of black America in the suburbs. We got to get more sophisticated in terms of understanding politics and understand that it ain't the president so much. Yeah, they sign the laws, but it's Congress that makes the laws. And unless we got enough members...
How do we get Congress in?
How do we what?
How do we get people in position in Congress? Because what I want to do is federal, then talk state, then talk. I want to be able to sit down so there's no doubt about how they get there.
Well, I think one, you got to be engaged. I think one, you got to understand how laws are made and how important that congressional representatives' vote is. I mean, we're not sandwiched in just one community anymore. I mean, every Texas got 254 counties. Now, there are blacks in all these counties. These are all Republicans in these counties. A lot of people are not voting for legislators, and the reason why Texas got primarily most Republicans, except in the urban areas where you got large numbers of black folks, is because the black folks in these other places ain't really talking about black issues to their elected representatives. Either because they're small in numbers or they are ashamed to talk about black issues. Whatever the reason.
Right.
It's not.
How do we get a person in Congress? An individual. Whatever be in Congress.
Congress, each member of Congress is elected every 2 years. They're elected by the popular vote. By the people. They're elected every 2 years. So every 2 years we have a congressional election. So some congressional elections fall in that midterm, that non-presidential year, and some, like now, fall in a presidential year. So all of Congress, except with the senators who got staggered terms, who got different, they're not staggered, but you got so many elected one cycle every 4 years and then another cycle every 4 years. But Congress, every 2 years, your House of Representatives are elected. And like I said, it's by popular vote, midterm, and and then the presidential year, non-presidential years, presidential years, and see I guess my point, what I want the listeners to understand, we can't put the burden for change just on the people at the bottom of the well. Black people that are in the suburbs, that are everywhere, need to get engaged where they are. And stop running to the black community and saying, well, I'm going to help elect Sheila, I'm going to help elect this person, and you never hear discussion about that person. If I'm black, I got issues in Pearland, you got issues in Shirts that we need to be. If your representative ain't the black guy because of the district you in, you need to be talking about that representative about issues that you're concerned about as an African American, as a black man. Mm-hmm. There's national legislation. The reason why we don't have the George Floyd Act passed is because we don't have enough support in Congress. All the black people support it. Mm-hmm. Most of the Democrats support it. They're also black. So that don't give us no additional numbers. Mm-hmm. So you got black and you got Democratic. It's one and the same.
Your popular vote be me.
Right. The popular vote, 50 plus 1. Mm-hmm. 50 plus 1.
Midterm election and regular election.
Right. But it's right. It's 50 plus 1. What that mean? 50% plus 1. So 50.1. That it's a winner take all system. Right. It's a winner take all. Ain't no like if we vote for a candidate and one candidate get 49% and another candidate get 51%, we don't get 49% of anything. It's a winner take all system.
Only one.
Right. And so we got to be more engaged because oftentimes legislators don't know where we stand on issues. Mm-hmm. That don't necessarily make them racist. They're paying attention to the people that vote for them or that let them know what they care about. Mm-hmm. I mean, if I live in a district and I got a white representative, it's incumbent upon me to let him know my concerns as an African American in this country, which tend to be a little bit more broad. Mm-hmm. Because first of all, I want to educate him about the issues from a black perspective. He may be just getting one perspective. Mm-hmm. And then I want to get his support and say, look, I'd like your support. Your district is majority white, but African Americans and Hispanics and other allies make up 30% of your vote. Yep. And I know you got a competitor, but I know you want to win. We could help you win. What I'm saying is we got to get smarter in our politics. Mm-hmm. We got to get smarter and talking about this issue, discussing it, gives people a broader perspective of politics. It ain't just because if all we keep doing is voting for the president and voting for black representatives, because that's who
the roommate here. I'll vote. Don't elect which is probably true, but how does that work?
Well, our vote can swing an election if we are voting at the same rate, not number, at the same percentages as whites. We are a major reason why, at least on the Democratic side, these Democrats win. Because if they didn't have that percentage of black vote, that high percentage of black vote, given the margins, they wouldn't win. That's why you think on the national level, yes.
Mm-hmm. And that's about what? Popular vote?
Well, it's a popular vote, but the popular vote is determined at the state level, and it's a winner-take-all system. Mm-hmm. So like in Texas, if we got 38 plus 2 senators, we got 36 plus 2 senators, that's 38 electoral votes. So like if Biden got 49% and Trump edged it out with 50%, he gets all 38 of those electoral votes. Mm-hmm. So
the president, they count the numbers. They count it for your vote. So each state, one of the presidents,
it takes 207. Right. And every state has electoral votes depending on the number of representatives it's got in that state.
And the number of people.
Right, and the number of people. But the number of people determine the number of representatives.
So this is why
well, they really just, because of the way politics are and because of voting patterns, they will come to Texas for money. They're not coming to Texas to campaign. Because and one of the problems, the reason why candidates have a hard time running statewide office in Texas is there ain't no other state in this country that got as many media markets as Texas. You know how expensive it is to run a TV ad in Texas? If you running for senator and you got 27 major media markets, you know how difficult that is? That's why they be wanting nickels and dimes and quarters and everything else we got. Because it takes money.
And that's why they ask for $5,
$5, $10, because it's all adds up. Because if Colin Allred wants to run ads statewide, he got to go through 27 different contracts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but they're not gonna spend it in Texas.
No.
You ain't seen no ads ran in Texas. The only thing you've seen in Texas is what the mass media, which tends to be a little bit liberal, shows you. Mm-hmm. The money is being spent in Arizona, Pennsylvania, and those states. Mm-hmm. New Mexico, Nevada. That's where the money is being spent.
Mm-hmm. So we've got a basic understanding of the federal. We're talking about representatives and how the Senate are elected. We know how vote affects presidential elections. So let's move to the state. So we have district leaders. District 121. I know that it's district for us down here. What district? How we elect individuals? Totally. For instance, our vote is the vote that put them in that. Like you said, whoever gets the 1%, that's who gets in that.
Right.
So it's the same, but our vote has more effect on this.
Yeah, but given our high percentage of turnout, mm-hmm. and given that we vote in proportion to whites, mm-hmm. in terms of numbers, percentages, mm-hmm. we could be the difference in a majority white district. Mm-hmm. That could be the percentage difference. Mm-hmm. If we leverage our vote for political empowerment for black people. Mm-hmm. But oftentimes, where you get the lower percentage, where you get the black people don't tend to vote except in presidential elections in the burbs. Mm-hmm. Because they got everything. They got good schools. They got good neighborhoods.
What?
They got, now this is important. Brother, they got everything that they need in the burbs. They got nice streets. They got the garbage picked up on time. They got decent, good infrastructure. They got quality amenities, stores and health facilities and walk-in clinics and stuff. They got everything. But what I'm trying to get people that are listening to understand is that they also have a greater responsibility in non-presidential years to elect these people that are going to Austin, to influence these people that are going to Austin, passing these draconian bills that are not only hurting them, not as much as they're hurting the people at the bottom of the well when it comes to health care and quality education and affordable housing and all the kind of things that we say we care about, but we ain't doing a damn thing about politically. Mm-hmm. Because we don't even vote because it doesn't impact us. So we got to start mm-hmm. understanding that we are one. That even though we're black and even though we got the resources or we really got a little education and we can live where we want to live and we got all these amenities, that you can be Bobby Tolan one night. You could be living in the burbs and you can have visitors get in your car to go to the store and get pulled over by the cop, and that's the end of their life or the end of their career just because of the color of their skin. So it's incumbent upon us to help these white politicians that appeal to the worst in their communities because they don't hear any voices, to hear from us and let them know, hey, look, we're only 14% of this community, but we vote in the same percent. We can decide this election. We cannot stand on the sidelines any longer and pretend like what's happening to our brothers and sisters anywhere. Like Dr. King said, a threat to justice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. When we don't vote, we impact our brothers and sisters everywhere.
All over the
Right.
That's a big deal. A big deal. I can thank you, Claude. That's very important. It's close to our goal of what we're trying to do here now. The more we say, the more we develop the stuff that they neglect for us.
Right.
That's what we want to do. We want to get our law.
But see,
putting in a vote.
When it comes to politics, we've got a segregated thought process.
Mm-hmm.
That only the segregated places or the segregated spaces is what we're voting against. But we got a wider. Those of us, the franchise gives you much greater responsibility to fight injustice wherever injustice is. The reason why you got a legislature in Austin that passes these bills is because in none of these communities, black folks have marshaled or have voted with someone that's more reasonable, that's someone that's more understanding of the issues, because we don't never meet with them. We're like a silent minority. We got everything that we always wished for: a nice house, a nice car, nice school, nice neighborhood, quality amenities.
But I gotta be careful. We're lucky in America. We're having everything we want. People in the suburbs. What I think is referring to. But the Lions story will not be told if you're dependent on the hunter to tell the story. Because that's not happening.
Yeah.
So nobody knows what we need or what we want. We don't put it out there.
If we don't tell them. But
no.
I mean, they watch the news. But see, there is nothing like, I'll give you a good example. My brother died of ALS. So we lobbied Congress. I helped lobby. I joined this organization and we lobbied Congress. But my lobbying, the letters that I write, the perspective that I bring is from an African American perspective, to help Congress understand how it affected me as an African American and affected my family as African Americans, which is different from the white experience. So that's why I have yet to see. Now I see black folks go to suburban areas and knock on doors, encouraging people. These are presidential elections because that's where the money is. But when it comes to statewide elections where there is no federal concern or where nobody's telling you to do it, we don't do it. We're not engaged. Okay, where do you live?
San Antonio.
Okay, the area that you live, are all your representatives black?
No.
Have you ever met with them to discuss black issues, black concerns, black policy?
Yeah.
You've met with them to discuss black policy. But as a group, as a group of churches,
I've met with our state representative.
Right. Well, as an individual, but as a group, in terms of an election year,
every month we do a breakfast with our state.
Yeah, but that's. But do you talk to? I mean, but that's a coalition of black folks.
Yeah, it's 99%, but it's like people on there. But you want you can.
Yeah. I'm just saying. Yeah, I don't. I'm just saying that I just think that politically we got to become a little bit more. Because whites are the majority. Black people
have a mission or objective when we go talk to them.
There are two.
You gotta have to go with. What do you want?
Well, I think it's not so much what do we want. I think that if we got a legislator in Austin and we want the continuation of DEI, we need every vote we can get. That white legislator that represents us, it may be a Republican district, but have they only been educated about one perspective of DEI? And they got to listen to.
You hear all the time that black on black, but the fact is, the crime in the black nation, crime is in the white people. They have bring it's 4-to-1 crime in the white nation than it is in the black. So you only hear black on black crime. And that's the people that represent us are not boisterous people that represent it. So we got to tell the story too. Like welfare, wealth means and all this other stuff you use. But we're not the ones who use the majority of things that people government. We're not those people. So the only way that's changed is through participation was voting, electing people that are well informed,
right,
and want to make things
right. And you know, and I think we have to become a little bit more. I think we have to kind of believe in, you know, right here in Houston in the 18th congressional district, the congressional district was majority minority since 1973, and since 1973 there's only been one. Barbara Jordan, Mickey Leland, one other guy, and Sheila Jackson Lee in all those years. It's because and it could be and that gives that person in that seat in Congress a lot of power, chair of really significant committees, because everything is based on seniority. So I think that's why we hold on. But at some point we have to turn the reins over to younger people. Because to me, there shouldn't be no state in the union that disenfranchised black people for being formerly incarcerated in prison. There should not be not one state in this nation.
That's
now, Texas, we finally, and that's where I met Chuck, because we fought for legislation to, and now if you're off paper, you're not permanently disenfranchised. I mean, look what happened in Florida when they gave citizens the right to vote back. They had huge successes there. Gillum became governor of Florida. I mean, he screwed it up when he got in trouble, but he would have never got elected if those ex-felons hadn't been able to vote in Florida. Texas, I still think it should be automatic. You shouldn't have to wait till you get off. Once you serve your time, you should be eligible to vote. And we should be.
Break. Claude, come right back.
Okay, bro.
All right. Talk about the country, the national level, state level. Take it local for a minute.
Okay.
And talk about our city and stuff like that. Go ahead, Clark.
Talk about what now?
Our local officials, like city council, the precinct judges, the constable, the elected at our city level.
Yeah, well, every position from that's elected from municipal judge, all the way up to criminal courts, has an impact on our daily lives. So we shouldn't sit out any election, because all these elections, are important to our existence, to our quality of life. Especially, some of the positions that we don't think are important, like municipal judge, like county commissioner. All these different positions are important, but they have some of the lowest voter turnout rates in the country. And so we wind up with unaccountable people. And when you elect someone that's unaccountable, then you get what you get. The quality of the representation, if the candidate can be easily bought off by special interests, that's what you get. And in a lot of cases, that's what we get.
Yeah, we pay We
got
got
2,540 voters that District 2 can count first.
Mhm.
Now I know
25,
50,000 people
in
in that particular district.
There's
There's
no
no way
we should be
only seeing 2,500 people.
But you know, the problem with local elections and different things. There is no money. There is no you know, our democracy. You know, when the Supreme Court said, you know, that money has a voice in elections, and open up the whole trough to let money influence who. Basically, money determines who wins, and that's why, you know, I started this grassroots bold leadership pack here in Houston, but there are other packs. The collective pack out of two friends of mine from the NAACP when I was regional director started that pack, and so we have to get as sophisticated as the system that we live under. And Chuck is right in the sense that, you know, money doesn't vote, but money really decides who gets elected. Mm-hmm. And if we don't have an infrastructure, if we don't have that mechanism in place to ensure the right candidate gets elected, to ensure the right candidate can get their message out, to get the people to the polls that will vote for them, then people lose. Brad Jordan ran for District D councilman. You know Brad Jordan with the rap group. I can't think of the name of it.
Live Crew.
No, not Two Live Crew. It'll come to
Fifth Ward.
Yeah, Fifth Ward. But he ran for council member, and but for the financing, we ran his campaign, but for the financing, the money, he probably would have won because the mainstream money was behind the mainstream so-called safe candidate. And so he lost. And you have a lot of people around this country that lose. And the black people that do win are compromised by the money that they had to take to win.
Yeah.
So then, right, well, yeah, by the money that who gave them the money. Mm-hmm. So whatever interest gave them the money, that's the interest that's going to get the attention. That's the interest going to get the support. So, like Chuck said, you know, I mean, how much black money do we have for politics? We don't have enough black money for our own existence, let alone to be able to give to politics and in numbers where we can influence who gets elected and the policy position that they take. Right. The reason why we got two-party system the system is not for us. The interest. You know, like Kamala Harris said, I can't do nothing just for black people. Like Obama said, I can't do nothing just for black people.
You hear it, it's the truth.
Yeah, but I can do something specifically for Israel. I can do something specifically for the Asian community. I can do something specifically for everybody else. Because everybody else got money, brother. Everybody else got money.
They don't do anything for us. Basically, we all know for real reason. We know that they know who we are. And that we want to be kept down as long as we allow them to keep down. Once we start to get out what we're doing right now, it will change. All right, so city level, council, you got the judge, local.
You got constables, you got justice of the peace,
people in that district.
Right, in their district. All those positions are elected positions, elected by the taxpayers. Mm-hmm. And I mean, you get who you get. I mean, some of them, and depending on where you live, I mean, you know, like you get majority minority representation. Like Houston has majority minority districts. You know, multiple majority minority districts. They only got, out of 11 city council districts, only probably 2 are white. The rest of them are majority either Hispanic or black. But you know, having said that, the policy preferences and the policy solutions are more geared to protecting the interests of the white community, because that's where affluency is.
So
It's like
what are some of the tactics we use to keep us distracted from what needs to happen in the voting country?
well, it ain't a tactic. It's just money. I mean, it ain't. They don't hide it. Right. And I'll give you a good example. The GLBTQ community, they got a lot of money. Mm-hmm. So their policy preferences and their interests are going to get the interests of especially the minority politicians. Because, well, like I said, but like I say,
they do because they want to come on back in your neck.
Well, it's not so much that, brother. It is the fact. It's just a reality. They use their money. They got the money for what you can say racism gave them an advantage, and we got a disadvantage financially and stuff. But they got money to contribute to candidates and to get the candidates that they contribute to listen to their interests. Mm-hmm. We don't have politicians come to our churches. Because a nonprofit church can't raise money. Churches don't have PACs. Mm-hmm. The pastor can't ask everybody to reach in their wallet and give money to the candidate.
Whatever happens to churches, black churches, not talk about politics.
No, because they're 501c4s. Because they're non-taxed. They're non-profits.
So they were crazy. Talk about
but you raise a good issue. Is should we be fighting for laws to change the system to allow given the culture of black people is a little bit different, since most of our money goes into churches, but yet that entity can't participate in politics in the way that everybody else does in terms of money. Mm-hmm. Now, so is the law hurting our political engagement from that perspective? Does the system, the way it's structured, prevent African Americans from pooling their resources and participating in the political process? I would argue, yeah, because that's just the way the system is, and maybe the system was set up knowing that. Maybe churches became nonprofit. Because maybe the system, maybe the people that structured the system knew that's where most black folks put their money. So the lawmakers created a system to where we can only give to, that we can't give to the church, and the church can't make political contributions, regardless of who the members as a collective body support.
Okay, and let's give one more time and go into some of the things that people are sacrificing to get out the voting right you have today. So I'd like to start with just listen simple. And mega effort stands at listening. He's the military guy. Back to Mississippi and started doing
well, yeah, he's over the NAACP branch, and his whole focus back then was on voting rights. That's because that's what the NAACP was focused on, was voting rights and education.
They shot him in the
Louisa,
white lady, looked white. I don't know who's black, but looked like she was killed. Cliff off. And then the work that federal change with James Kennedy, Andrew Goodman, and Michael Smarter.
But those were white guys that got killed and one black. But a person that's not often talked about that started the Selma to Montgomery, that was the spark that started the Selma to Montgomery movement, was Jimmy Lee Jackson. That was shot during a voting rights protest just down the road in Marion, Alabama at night by a state trooper. And he was brought to Selma to Good Samaritan Hospital, and they didn't have the capacity there to deal with his industries. So they had to take him 90 miles to Birmingham to a medical center, and he died on the way up there because the ambulance on the way up there had a flat tire. And it was just a whole bunch of stuff, but he died on the way up there. And then as acknowledgement of that death and in protest of that death, they was going to carry the body from Selma to Montgomery and lay it at the state capitol. But Jimmy Lee Jackson, who was an ex-military guy, who is the one that really started the Selma to Montgomery. I know we talk about John Lewis and all these folks, but it was that name people should know, they should read about, they should know that history. Jimmy Lee Jackson.
There's some people looking at all the history. A lot of people from Mississippi that they were killing. Like Reverend George Lee from Belzone in Mississippi, registering people to vote. And that's like 5 minutes from Westbrook. Then we had Omar in Brookhaven, Mississippi.
Yeah.
Same thing. They killed him. Then in what is it? Louisville, he had a corporal. He was on the bus, and the bus driver called the police on him. He was acting to the military.
Right.
And they put him on the bus and shot him.
Right.
And nobody got prosecuted that.
And the uniform of your country that you were serving in was not a protection. If anything, white folks were more angry with you in uniform than if you were just a regular ordinary citizen.
Right.
Because
you serve your country, and you're going to have pride people who you are.
Right.
So I made a letter that was written about people coming back from World War II. You know, officers commanded all black soldiers, like regiments, to World War I.
Well, not in our lifetime. Well, America was integrated in World War II.
That's my point. They put the black people where World War I.
Okay.
They put the black people under French
Right.
World War I.
Right.
And so when they came back, they were crying out because they were over there around with the women, and nobody said anything. You see the black man walking to the white woman. They came back to the next day. And a gentleman from the United States wrote a letter to all the French commanders and said, you're going to have to put black people back in their seat. They can't act like it here in America. They told them, they had told in Germany and England and that. But when they came back, they still had to be treated like the which it was put down out of military to implement stuff like that. The people they vote. That's pretty sad.
Yeah.
You want to come back and put in that. But one of the mention voting is poll tax, literacy test, fraud, all this kind of stuff, outrageous rules that they put us under, keep us from being able to vote. But the major thing that I wanted to talk about today is September 15, 1953 in Birmingham, Alabama, where the 16th Street Baptist Church was bombed. And the beautiful little girl was killed in that bomb.
Yeah.
Now that was something that nobody really got charged for. Did they ever charge put him in prison? I think they knew who it was.
Well, the Democratic senator that was left in Alabama, that won the Alabama Senate race a few years ago, when no Democrat had won statewide office, a federal office, statewide office in years, in decades. He was the prosecutor and prosecuted the person that was responsible, Chambers, that was responsible for that bombing. He prosecuted it, and black folks elected him to office. He was the first Democrat elected to statewide office since I'm almost gonna say since Reconstruction. I mean, it was a long time. But he lost. He lost after that. But it was black women that elected him. But a lot of his attractiveness and a lot of his support came because he pursued that case for all those years and finally brought the perpetrator to justice. So there's still a lot of injustice. You think that's the only injustice around the country? There are all kind of murders and killings and that were done to black folks that have never been. The lady that Emmett Till, she died without ever being prosecuted, without ever being brought to trial. So there's still a lot of injustice. And so all people gotta, when it comes to voting, I'm glad you bring up the history. And that's why I think our schools don't do a decent job in educating students about that history. Because I don't think that there would be nobody that's not registered that could be registered. But like I say, black people are registered in almost the same percentage as in turnout at the same levels as whites. But given our history and given the denial of the right to vote, and given our evolution from slave to 60% person to now, we should never miss a day at the polls. Every opportunity we should be voting. Our churches should be just like that Birmingham church. Our churches should be teaching voter education, the history of the voting struggle.
Now, why did they bring that church?
Because the church was the pastor of that church was part of the civil rights movement and the protest that was going on in Birmingham at that particular time. Right. And that's churches were bombed all over throughout the South. There were numerous churches bombed and burned in Mississippi. There were pastors that were murdered. And I just, I have a daughter. I have a daughter in school, and I quiz her on these topics. They're not getting it in schools. They're not getting it in public schools. No, because they're not talking. They can't talk about it. They can't talk about that kind of evil. It upsets them. It's something. We can't talk about that kind of past.
They don't want people to know.
But the reason why we don't talk about it is because politically we have let our young people down. Because if we were more active politically and more engaged politically, that would be a curriculum in the schools. Because who do you think govern education in the states? The states do. In fact, the Supreme Court just ruled, and this is where Project 2025 comes in. If there's a school district in Texas that says that that the state can't tell them, that the federal government can't tell them what they can teach in that school. And it's because of these rulings that the Supreme Court is putting out now, to where the administrative state that Biden keeps talking about, the administrative state has no power over the states. So whether it's the Department of Education, the Department of Transportation, all these administrative agencies can't tell a state what to do, how to do it, and when to do it. And the Supreme Court has ruled in there that they can get away with that. And so this school district, they basically told the complainants, there ain't nothing you can do because the Department of Education can't interpret the laws as it relates to GLPT issues and stuff. Can't tell a school district what they can do. And the Supreme Court
or the reserve.
But they're not gonna send in the National Guard if the Supreme Court,
they can't do it.
yeah, but then that would be anarchy because they're not. The federal government's not gonna send.
Little Rock. But in Little Rock.
Well, yes, it was anarchy in Little Rock. I mean, that was straight out war. It was anarchy in Alabama when George Wallace stood in the schoolhouse door and it may cut. And that's why that's why the presidency is so important because it may come to that again, where the president's got to enforce federal law, and because these federal agencies carry out the federal government's interpretation of the law. If the law says you can't discriminate against people based on certain attributes, a state can't say, well, we're not going to allow that at our school. Mm-hmm. So history repeats itself, my brother. It ain't black folks today. It's GLBT and those kind of folks. But the law is the law. Right. But the law is the law. And so there are a lot of issues that this Supreme Court, them three Trump appointees gonna do more damage than any president ever. Just like Taney did. Mm-hmm. Look how long we suffered when Taney said that. Huh? Any agencies that enforces it, look, fair housing. That's just part. Look at fair housing. Yeah. Any agencies that try to tell a state that interpret the federal law to tell the state you can't do this, and the state ignores it, and it winds up in the courts, and the Supreme Court sides with the state. Mm-hmm. That's why every election is so important, my brother. But people, we don't do a good enough job, I think, educating the voters about the impact. Now, should Obama been allowed to appoint 2 people to the Supreme Court? Yeah. But here again, a majority. But here again, it was a majority Republican Congress denied his moment in history. And I think that's why he's still involved in presidential elections, because they denied Obama's place in history. Obama could have put 3 progressive people on that count. Sotomayor, and he could have appointed 2 more. He missed his place in history, and we're suffering the consequences of it now, because we don't focus on state and local elections. Mm-hmm. Senators are elected at the state level. Congress people are elected at the state level. We get money, and we get a little bit of shine to elect the president, but you see, without them other bodies, the president can't do shit. Mm-hmm. And that's what people got to understand, that all elections are important, that all elections have consequences, and we got to be in the long game. See, we're not in the long game. We're in the game of the moment. It's the presidential election, so everybody's coming around, well, you got to vote, you got to do. But what about 2 years from now, in the off-year elections? And we're out there, and we ain't galvanized, and there ain't a whole lot of coverage on TV, because that group of folks that control the media don't give a shit about what goes on at the state level, unless it's in a presidential election. So we got to understand that these laws, out of all the people that laws impact, they impact us the most negatively. They impact us the most. Mm-hmm. Other people got their special interests, but our lives are impacted. And like I say, Obama was denied 2 opportunities to put somebody on the Supreme Court.
And it takes time for it to come around. When it comes around,
because they in it for the long game. We have a short term. I think sometime at the state level, because we're such a small minority, even though Texas got more black folks than any other state. Mm-hmm. But we're spread out in 254 counties. There's only about 5 or 6 counties where we're double digit in number. You know, mm-hmm. Harris County, Jefferson County down there in Beaumont. The counties like that, Dallas, the Fort Worth Metroplex, Tarrant County, and Fort Bend, where you got double-digit black folks. It could be anywhere from 17% to 20-some%, but you got a large black population and Hispanic population to where whites ain't the majority. But even in Texas, with 254 counties, there's only about 75 to 80 counties where you have a non-white majority. So whites are the majority in this state. So they're the majority in the 254 counties.
We all from the state.
Huh?
Right.
We always
Republican.
No, you were here during Ann Richards' range. It was Democrat. Johnson was a Democrat. Ann Richards wasn't always a Republican.
Was it in the 60s?
Well, Ann Richards, I think, was 70s maybe. Johnson was in the 60s. Ann Richards came after her, or came. But I think she was. Ann Richards was the last Democratic governor. I think it was in the 80s. I think it was all the way up to the 80s. But Texas, like I say, it's like we've sectioned off Texas, and black folks are. There's not a wall of segregation anymore, so we can live anywhere. So Texas is sectioned off, and it seems like when we get it in that section or in that majority section, we just kind of like disappear politically. Because like I said, we got all the niceties that politics bring, and so we don't turn our individual selves into advocates. We're not like the advocates back in the day. I think you need the same type of advocates where we're sectioned off at. Well, I don't think the younger generation see themselves as advocates. They see themselves as business people. You don't even hear them talk about being advocates. They talk about business and making money as well as they should. But you can't forget the advocacy part. And right now, in those sanctioned off areas of the state, there are no advocates.
One thing you got to remember too, that there are specifically white communities in America. Black people can live in America.
Well, no, there are black people everywhere. There's only, in fact,
black people do not live and don't want to live.
In fact, in Texas, out of the 254 counties, there's only about 5 or 6 counties where there are 0 black people. 0%.
Right?
Yeah, there are some.
You remember Forsyth,
huh?
You seen all cities that's been buried.
Yeah.
Forsyth was the first one to Perry Lake, where they killed all the black people and buried the city underwater. They got all the black people. And they gave them a time to get up. He did.
Right.
So they made it in all places. And it's hundreds of places now with only white guys. But I wanted to take the last minute to go into new. We get stuck on what Trump might say. We get what Vice President might say. We gotta get to the point where we're done with Trump. We gotta stop him to take over the meat and be focused on our attention. Because what he's saying is irrelevant. He's really not saying. So focus on the good is where we're right now with Kamala Harris, the presidential. So look up, down, from. No comment.
Well, I try not to be partisan. I think that people should look at all the candidates and choose the candidate that's best. Arguably, when it comes to voting, when it comes to our issues, the Democratic Party has represented our interests better than the other party, or better than any other party. So I think in federal elections, it becomes down to either or kind of proposition. I wish it wasn't an either or, and maybe if it wasn't, maybe we wouldn't be taken for granted. Huh?
Trump is danger as a president of the United States.
Like I said, it comes down to an either or proposition. I mean, personally, I don't like his agenda. I don't like his racism. I don't like how he stereotypes black people. I don't like anything about the way he is as a person. I don't like anything about the way he governed in 2020 when he won. I mean, in 2016. I don't like his style. I don't like that so he's not my candidate. Mm-hmm. But I guess what I'm saying is, I think the takeaway is I want voters to understand that it's just not the presidential election where voting is important. All elections everywhere, and our engagement and our involvement with politicians, with the electoral process, in terms of the administration of politics, in terms of the selection of candidates, in terms of our interaction and engagement with candidates of all parties, so that we get a kind of Congress that truly represents all the people, where it ain't just 50 and 49, and when it's 50 and 49, like I say, in a winner-take-all system, the 49% don't get shit. Right. So we need to broaden our perspective of politics and get a little bit more strategic. We need to continue to register those people that are not voting. We need to reach back and educate and uplift those people that are in the well, so to speak, and educate them about the issues and their involvement in what we've talked about on the show in terms of broadening our perspective of how politics and how we manage politics, and fight to change those laws that continually try to restrict. Because there's a reason why money's in politics, because they know we didn't have no money. They didn't just say money has a voice. They say white people with money got a larger voice because they got more money. So that's the effect of it. They get to influence the politics. They get to influence who is in our government, who manages our government, because they got more money. He didn't say, well, the people that go to church the most can whatever. I mean, they choose these advantages based on who is advantaged and who is disadvantaged. It's not just an arbitrary decision. It's a conscious decision because they look behind the television screen and they know what's back there. And they know it's who it's going to impact. So when you make a decision like they did about money and politics, they knew it was going to hurt the black community or the Hispanic community, because we have the least amount of money to influence the policymakers. Mm-hmm. And look who the policymakers pay attention to: the corporations, big America. How do you live off $7 an hour? That's $15,000 a year. How do you live off that? And then
you raise the minimum wage to $10. But there's a secret that we will have to do. One, the people that hire people will start to be more who they can have. The people in the bottom of the world are going to get bigger because they're not people that don't have the skill or the mentality to do what they expect to do. The people that are bottom of the world right now will start to grow because of that $15 an hour.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that I don't know whether it should be at 15. Maybe it should be more. I'm just saying that I know $7 an hour ain't cutting it. $25 by nobody's standard.
Like right now, we're talking about all the people limping overseas getting Medicare care. They all get Medicare care from France.
Right.
But they come back. They gotta have get treated here, get there. They gonna get standard treatment. So this is.
I mean, I think about politicians, man. The same people that don't want to increase the minimum wage are the same people that want to cut out Obamacare, want to do away with these SSI benefits and all this kind of stuff. So they don't want to pay them, and then they don't want government to intervene in terms of of supplementing their income because you're not paying them enough. Give me a break. But yet you can give corporations all kind of tax breaks.
What amount of money you think would be enough to have husband and wife to survive in America? What amount of money would
I don't know what that figure is. I just know how much I spend when I go to the grocery store, and I know if I was only making $15 an hour, $7 an hour, I couldn't afford what I need to survive with. I do know that.
That ain't really. The stuff still ain't.
Right.
Even if you don't. It doesn't.
And my thing is, my thing is, if we can guess how many bubbles in a bar of soap, we can damn sure figure this politics stuff out. So I don't think it's that complicated. I think that as black people, shows like this and other shows that are on the internet and stuff and TikTok and stuff, some of it's bad, but it gets people to think, and you hear and see and know about things that you and I didn't know about growing up. And so the education is out there. We ain't got to rely on one source anymore. But I just believe that where our tax dollars are, whether it's public education or whatever, that we should have a voice, and we should be taught about us and our contributions and our history in this country. And it shouldn't be withheld from us because somebody's got some political views about critical race theory or something else. White people don't want to talk about the past because in many cases, they are ashamed of the past because they have never, ever, we've acknowledged atrocities all over the world, but we've never formally acknowledged the atrocities done to black folks in this country. And so, and I think we will never get that acknowledgement unless we learn how to play politics, because that's where it's gonna come from. You grew up in Mississippi, I grew up in Selma, in almost the furnace of voting rights. People, them kids died in Mississippi, and so many other unsung heroes died in Mississippi. Fannie Lou Hamer has never gotten her just due in that state. Right. And so, it's just a lot of unfinished business.
Those are the ones we know about.
Right. Yeah, those are the ones that we know about. That and we didn't know about Shana. Some people would argue that them two white boys hadn't been Jewish, we wouldn't have known about that death. He would have just been buried, and and so there's still a lot of injustice out there, and we're in a democratic society where politicians get to set the policy, and we got to start understanding, how the sandwich is made and get involved wherever we are, and get to talking and getting to, when I run across my white friends or whatever, I had stopped a guy in Walmart. We was talking about the election, white guy, and he kept coming by because he said, "Y'all still talking?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah, we're talking about the election." He said, "Who y'all for?" And then we told him, well, at least the lady I was with told him. I told him I kind of undecided. I'm supporting an independent guy, and he said, "Well, I'm for Trump." So we got into this really heavy conversation, and but it was cordial. It was cordial, and I try to go to different meetings out here in Pearland. I try to go and engage with the elected officials. Even though I'm in the part of Pearland, I got a black state rep, I got a black county commissioner, I got a black justice of the peace, I got a black state rep. And everything is black except my city council member. Mm-hmm. And yet we got right in our area on Highway 521, they trying to put in a concrete crushing plant. All them black folks can't stop it. All that black power can't stop them because it's a majority kind of black area of a majority white area.
There's going to be dust everywhere.
Yeah, it's going to be dust everywhere. Why not? All that black power, and they can't stop it. You know why they can't stop it? You know why they can't stop it? You know why they can't stop it?
Why?
Because a government agency called TCEQ gave them the permit.
Environmental services or quality.
Yeah, Texas Commission on Environmental Quality gave them the permit and says okay to go ahead and put that shit up around black folks.
Yeah. All right, Claude. We've been on about an hour. Say a few more things before we close.
Voting is important. Your vote is your power. I could say a lot of different accolades about why it's important to vote. But get to know the issues, get to know who the candidates are, engage those candidates, let them know your concerns. I don't care where you are. Suburbs, exurbs, inner city, I don't care where you are. Talk to your politicians. Go to the meetings and vote. It's the message I think we want to leave today.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, that was our co-host, Claude Austin. He's been with us quite a while. We'll just do a recap of what we talked about today. We started out with the 15th Amendment, Voting Rights Act of 1965, and then we started to drill down with Section 5, state pre-approval with Supreme Court opener. Then we got to give individual rights to a state for denying them a vote. We still have problems with people voting when they are qualified. We got to think about redistricting coming up. We got everything now. Can't do the literacy test. They can't do the poll tax. They can't do the fraud until you voting. So they're trying other tax like counting debt. Whatever it takes to do is misdirecting in the reality that's happening. And I said it earlier, say it again. I hope we're not getting around the act of down. I mean, we talk a lot about it. If you notice, they've been on fire quite a while. And let's try to put one Harris. That's where we should be. Let's say you're driving down the highway and you miss your exit. What do you do? Do you go to the exit and turn around on the exit road, or do you back up on the freeway? You take your exit. You can't back. Whatever you've done is done. That's your hit. The only thing you do go to the next exit. If you still want to get at the back and turn around and get it. But you got to turn around the right way. So my thing is, we've made mistakes. We've let some legislation get by with that political situation go by. But we can always recapture those things we missed. So without further comment, what we talking about today. Don't forget about 2015, 1963, the four young ladies. Hattie Collins, East McNair, Carolyn, and Cynthia West. Those are very important. This is the Black Network, the real voice of Black U.S.A. First support what we can use. We appreciate listening to our show. We thank you for everything you do for us. Please don't forget to go to YouTube and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We need you to subscribe. Go to our Facebook feed and like our Facebook and say something about it. That's all you got to do. Those are the things that we appreciate. Those things are free. And lastly, this is the Black News Network. We thank you for everything that you have done, and we will see you next week on Sunday at 3:30.